North Dakota is one of those states that is so insignificant that it doesn't even have the distinction of being insignificant. There are certain states that you travel through and you just get the overwhelming sense that this is a place where absolutely nothing happens. But if you were to think of a state that holds that distinction, you might name a state like Kansas or Nebraska or even Ohio, though you would be wrong there. But not only does nothing happen in North Dakota, but it's overshadowed by its better known twin sister, South Dakota. So we drove through North Dakota, and I was struck by the vast amounts of absolutely nothing that we drove through. I mean, we in Ohio tend to joke about living in the middle of nowhere, but seriously, we don't know the half of it. At least in Ohio, you can't really drive for longer than 10 minutes without hitting some sign of civilization. In North Dakota, you can drive for the better part of an hour and not see anything that indicates that anyone lives here, aside from the highway and the occasional row of billboards. It was unnerving, to say the least, and it made me a little nervous. And when we finally did come across the city, it came up so suddenly that we were all startled by it. But more startling was what came next. I was starting to despair for this lonely state and what little impact it had aside from Fargo, which I understand is an excellent movie, when we came across a breathtakingly beautiful landscape. We pulled over at the next rest stop and found ourselves at the Painted Canyon, a section of the Badlands and also a part of the Teddy Roosevelt National Park. We stood looking at this breathtaking landscape for a good half an hour, but what struck me was the gift shop, which was almost entirely devoted to Teddy Roosevelt, who had a huge impact on this country during his time as president after a long run of largely mediocre presidents who had little to no impact on this country, most of whom, by the by, were from Ohio. He's the reason why we can see some of these breathtaking sights with relatively little interference from civilization. If not for Roosevelt, our country would be a very different place. And in the gift shop is this quote from Roosevelt himself. Guess it just goes to show that even the most seemingly insignificant place has an impact.